everybody, thank you very much for coming online tonight. I really do appreciate the time taken out away from family. If you've just logged on, we are down in Knysna. We're working with 2 3G connections and a cell phone, and we have a backup connection in Cape Town. So if anything goes wrong, we'll keep moving forward. Yaku will either take over, and we've also got Andrea Valenzuela online tonight. She's taking time out. She's in Phoenix, and she's going to explain to us exactly how we can get finance, legitimate finance, in the USA, and in so doing, double our portfolio with cash flow positive properties with no money down. Now, there's a caveat over there, which we'll get to throughout the presentation tonight. But let's get started.
I think, Brendan, just one thing quickly before you get into Andrea. If everyone could just ask questions all the way through, the whole purpose of it, it's out of our control. We did order a telephone line on the 1st of June, and Telkom have put it through as fast as possible and are putting it in tomorrow on the 22nd of August. So we do live in Africa, and we have to deal with the uncertainty of Africa sometimes. So if there's any problems with the internet, as Brendan says, we'll call in or we'll get someone to take over in the meantime. But just bear with us. There's also a massive storm here. But we're looking forward to it, and I'm very excited to hear what Brendan and Andrea have to share with us.
Yeah. So, Andrea Valenzuela, he's taking some finance techniques that we're employing right now in the USA to help our existing clients double their portfolio and double their passive income. Before we get into that, I'm going to hand over to her in literally a couple of minutes. We're going to keep quite strict on time. But, we've gone on to a couple of questions here. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but the basic one is what the USA. And effectively, right now in South Africa, our global wealth is being undermined. Our global economic freedom is being eroded. We've touched on this stuff a lot in our previous USA Investors Club breakfast. It's not anything to harp on about. It just is what it is. But what it does is it affects our actual freedom to travel, our freedom to choose where we want to live, our freedom to choose where we want our kids to go to school, whether they want to go to school overseas in the future or locally or get a high-quality education, to choose our lifestyle. Effectively, the rand has lost about 25% in the last year. So our ability to choose our life is very much affected by holding all of our wealth here in South Africa. So we need to start thinking of our wealth in US dollar terms, just to be practical as well as to be responsible as investors. We need to start thinking of our wealth in US dollar terms. For more detail about all of that stuff, you can check out some of our previous USA Investors Club breakfasts. I really don't want to go into too much of that detail tonight because I know most of you have either heard it from us or seen it live, one of the two. So what I'm going to do is when I post up these videos, I will then follow up with an email tomorrow with all of these video links to everybody that was online tonight so that you can check out these videos. And one of my personal things is that I really love earning in dollars and spending in rands. It's extremely empowering, and it's a massive thing for me to be able to do. And one of the things that we like doing here in ITS is helping other people earn in dollars while they're living and spending in rands. So let me tell you a quick story. Most people know that we do a bias trip once every quarter where we take people out to the USA to have a look at exactly what we do and why we do it, where we're actively helping people invest in the USA right now. The last bias trip that we had, we went there, I think it was for about 2 weeks, it was just over 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks. It was an incredible trip. We had a lot of people. It was one of the most dynamic trips because we had people join halfway through. We had people come a little bit early. We had some people fly in from San Francisco, another person fly in from Canada who's an Australian. We had an extremely dynamic group of people with us, and it was very powerful to see. We had people from Malaysia there. We had an Australian guy who lived in the UK and moved to South Africa and is now investing in property in America. So it was extremely good to have all of those people with. And in doing that, we all learn from each other. It's a very empowering trip. We kind of lift our skirts on the trip, where we introduce everybody to all of our partners. And we all know the quality of the investment is literally related to the quality of the partners. You can have an average house and it can outperform a fantastic property purely because the partner with the average house is better than the partner with the great house. And I'm talking about partners in terms of management over here. And we're going to go into that in a little bit more detail later on with Andrea, because exactly how they define their business is by the quality of the partners too. So we're going to go into that a little bit more in detail later on. So what we did on that buyer's trip was we had lunch in Memphis, and Andrea was kind enough to buy lunch for all of our buyers as well as for ourselves. We got to meet the CEO of Bridge Capital, Scott, another Scott, who would have thought. And we had a very strategic conversation. By we, I mean Scott Pickens sat at the end of the table and had a good conversation with Andrea and with Scott, while all the buyers were busy hammering everybody else at the table with questions. So we had a whole bunch of questions in terms of the finance that was available. I see we've got somebody here that's saying there is no sound. Can you guys hear me clearly? Please just let me know. Just load it in the question box. I'm just going to give us a chance to see if everybody can hear us.
Michael Haney said it's no better than the February trip.
Can you have some good stories that come back with, I must say. Okay, so there is a slight echo. Guys, we really do apologize for this. Let me try this. Try something like this, and hopefully this is a bit better with no earphones, and hopefully no echo. So what happened was we had a great lunch there in Memphis at a cool little spot. I think I had ribs. It was fantastic. You usually have ribs when you go to Memphis, right after you've bought some good property. So the strategic conversation that went on was between Scott and Andrea, where we all know in business as well as in property that if you're not growing, you're dying. So to find like-minded people that are on a continual growth path and are constantly looking for opportunities to grow, it's very seldom, very rare. And when two people that are like-minded come together like that, there's synergy immediately. There's chemistry, there's good vibes, and as a result, Andrea stole my feet. I just want to tell a little story of there. If you travel enough to the USA with Delta Airlines, what happens is you get upgraded on all the internal flights when you've got a certain amount of star miles. But the problem is, I was only on silver status on my internal trips, and I usually get upgraded, but I did not get upgraded this time because Andrea bought a ticket the very next day to Atlanta and joined us on the Atlanta leg of the buyer's trip. And we proceeded to hold her hostage for 12 hours. The reason we held her hostage was so that she could vet the quality of our partners in Atlanta, because she was looking to grow their business and they were looking for new opportunities to be able to provide financing. But the only way they do it is not really related to the individual buying the property. It's more related to the actual partners who, one, do the rehab, and two, provide the management solution, because their ability to collect on the loans is directly related to the management solution, to how well they can cash flow the property and consistently collect rent. After holding our hostage for 12 hours, we looked at about 15 or 16 properties on that day. She was extremely happy with it, and as a result, is now allowing us to do finance in both Memphis and Atlanta, which is fantastic. So to talk a little bit about the power of leverage. I mean, leverage is literally the ability to do more with less. Archimedes was a great Greek mathematician, said, give me a lever long enough and I could move the world. Effectively, that's what it's about. And we spent a long time vetting people on legitimate finance, because if you look at some of our videos from a year ago, we did some videos where we defined exactly what kind of finance is currently being offered in the USA. And we went into quite a bit of depth on a webinar on how to get finance in the USA legitimately, and we really dug down deep. But what we did was we didn't give up. We persisted. And because we persisted, we managed to unlock Memphis as a finance provider with Andrea. And through that, we were able to help a lot more people move smaller amounts of money to buy more property overseas, which made this opportunity available to a lot more people. And now Atlanta is unlocked. So in simple terms, leverage gives you the ability to buy more property with less money out of your back pocket, which means you can buy more US dollar-based income-producing assets than ever before through IPS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Andrea. Let me just unmute her. She's going to go through a little bit about how we do this, as in the actual rental income. So let's go here.
Perfect. First of all, thank you for the introduction.
Are you there?
Yes, and thank you for the introduction. Can you turn on my screen too so that I can use my screen?
Yes, I'm going to do it right now.
Great. I think I'm turned on. Can everybody see and hear me all right?
I can hear you fine. Can everybody else hear?
Great. Then I'm going to go ahead and get started.
No, there is a bit of a feedback thing here. Just want to check what's going on, guys. Just give me a moment before Andrea gets started. Okay, Andrea, I think you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and I will definitely confirm that everything you said is absolutely true. I did steal your seat, that is true, and I was held hostage for 12 hours and enjoyed every single minute of it. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here today and get a chance to present at this webinar and kind of show some of the options that are available with leveraging. Again, my name is Andrea Valenzuela, and I am with Bridge Capital. Bridge Capital is a private finance company located in the United States, and we specialize with working with international investors. What we do is we offer loans to investors who are wanting to buy U.S. rental properties in markets across the United States. So I'm going to be talking a little bit today about leveraging and how you can use leveraging to achieve your financial goals. What we have found at Bridge Capital is there tends to be two different types or categories of investors. At the end of the day, it's all about maximizing your returns because as investors, that is the ultimate goal. But we'd like to define it down a little bit to say, what is the strategy that you are pursuing? So the first category of investor that we have found is what we call a mailbox investor. And what I mean by a mailbox investor is that is an investor who is looking to, again, maximize return, but they're taking a very short run approach. So they want to maximize their returns as in the check that comes in the mailbox each month. Okay? It's a perfectly legitimate investment strategy if you are using your rental income to cover your monthly living expenses. However, if that is the category you fall in, then no finance is a good option for you because finance by definition is going to lower your monthly cash flow. The second category of investor, and the one that really should consider finance or leverage as a very, very powerful tool in their investment toolbox, is somebody who's taking a long-term approach, who is saying, I'm not interested in maximizing my check in the mail next month, but I am definitely interested in maximizing my return over the next 10, 15, 20 years. For those investors, the question that you have to ask yourself is, do I want to double my portfolio, double my cash flow, double my market appreciation, double my asset base? If that is the strategy you're taking, if you're thinking long term, then leveraging is how are you going to accomplish that goal? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to walk through an actual example. And this example that I'm using are actual properties in Atlanta, Georgia that we saw on the bus tour. So I'm going to walk through the numbers and I'm going to show that's how one of your investors who has previously taken action, somebody who currently owns a property in the United States, can use that property to double their portfolio. All right, let me go to my first slide. So let's say we have a current investor who owns this home in Atlanta, Georgia. And again, this is an actual example. So I hope everybody can see my screen and sees the slide in front of them. So we have this property in Atlanta. Fantastic. We have this property in Atlanta, and I'm speaking to somebody who's previously taken action, and let's say that they are the proud owner of this property, this rental income producing asset. So the purchase price on this.
Can I just step in over here quickly? I just want to bring home the power of someone in the past who's already taken action. Because effectively what's happened here in South Africa is their wealth has grown by 25% roughly in this last year purely on the rand devaluation. They've had the benefit of the US dollar-based rental income over the last year, so they've built up a nice little rental kitty sitting in their bank account. And they've also had a little bit of capital growth because Atlanta's grown on average at over 16% in the last year. Across the board. Now, we all know across the board means high-end properties and low-end properties and everything in between. But those people that took action last year have already had those benefits. And what we're going to do now is give them an opportunity to compound those benefits, and you're going to show us how. I guess you can carry on.
No, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, because truthfully, I haven't even factored that in because I'm using today's prices. And as you said, if you had taken action a year or two ago, you had an even better. You are actually sitting really pretty. So thank you for mentioning that. So using this property as an example, let's say we have an investor who has purchased this property for $117,000. So on the screen you've got what the projected, you've got $1,100 in rent. Now we all know from rent you have to back off your expenses. So we're going to back off the $110 property management fee and back off the $155 for property taxes and property insurance. Remember, this is a real example, okay? So after we've paid the expenses, the cash flow of $835. If they were a mailbox investor, they would stop here and be happy because they would only be looking at the short-term returns. But what we're going to show you today is how that investor can take this property and use it as a down payment to acquire this property, zero out of pocket, okay? So now we're looking at a second property. Again, this is all about doubling your asset base, doubling your income producing asset base. So the second property, you've got the figures there, has a sale price of $115. Once we back off all of the expenses, is going to achieve a cash flow of $820. So if you were going to invest in this for cash, you would have to be bringing $115 to the table. But instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to take this first property and we're going to use it as a down payment to acquire this second property. So let me show you exactly how that's going to work. We're going to, Bridge Capital is going to structure your financing on that second investment property so that our loan is going to include the purchase price, the closing cost, the loan origination fee, and your escrow set up for property taxes and insurance. So when I mean you're coming zero out of pocket, I mean literally you're coming zero out of pocket because financing is going to cover everything you need, the cash you need to bring to close to acquire the second investment property. So I ran the actual numbers on this.
Andrea, I just want to mention something over here. So we're going through quite a bit of these figures over here. But this is very, very powerful for South Africa because, and particularly for South African investors, because what it means is that a person doesn't have to move any more money out of South Africa in order to acquire another income-producing asset. Because we have Reserve Bank regulations over here where we can move a specific amount of money per year, you know, as an investor for foreign direct investments. And that limit is 4 million rand with a tax clearance certificate and 1 million rand without a tax clearance certificate. But because people took action a year ago, if they own property right now in Atlanta, they'll be able to take a loan from you on their existing property and use that as a down payment on the second property and take another loan out on the second property and effectively get another property, not for free, but another property in their portfolio without having to lay out a cent from South Africa.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. I also want to say, because I see a question popping up, whether we are only going to be covering for people who already have invested. And the answer is just, if you can hold on a second, we are going to, after I go through this example, talk about an example of for first-time investors as well. So just wanted to address that question because I saw that question pop up. Okay, so as I mentioned, you've come zero out of pocket, you have doubled your portfolio, your income-producing asset base. And when I run the financing on this actual example, your monthly principal and interest is going to be $1,525. And I'm emphasizing the numbers. First of all, I'm a numbers person, but I really want people to understand the transaction and understand they're being set up for success, okay? So we've got a principal and interest to cover the financing of $1,525. Well, if you remember from the previous slides, there is a total cash flow available from those two properties after all the expenses had been backed out of $1,655. So we already backed out all of the property management, property taxes, and insurance.
Andrea, can I stop you there, please? It appears we are having some sound problems. Could I ask you if you could change your sound settings to the telephone on that audio there? You'll still be able to control the screen from your ADSL connection, but if you could call in on the phone, that would really help in terms of clarity so that everybody can hear what we're saying.
Okay, Eric, can you hear me? I'm on the phone.
Cool.
I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
Guys, just give us a minute. Okay, yes, we can hear you. You're on the phone now.
Fantastic. Is that a little bit better quality?
Yes, that is. I can hear, but let's just wait till everybody else gives us some feedback. Can everybody else hear Andrea clearly?
Wonderful.
Perfect. Okay, brilliant.
Like we're getting
okay, carry on. Much better. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, from the two investment properties, because again, this investor has now doubled their portfolio, we had $1,655 of cash flow after expenses had been backed out. Taking my $1,655, and that was the free cash flow from those two properties with expenses backed out, $1,525 of it is going to be used to cover the mortgage, leaving this investor with a positive cash flow of $130. So this investor has doubled their portfolio, and they still have a positive cash flow. All right? So let's kind of look at it from the big picture of what you've got and what you get. All right? So currently we have an investor who owns one property. They have an existing cash flow of $835. And of course, they're going to receive any market appreciation on that house as they hold that house, and any rent increases, because in my numbers, I haven't factored in any rent increases of any kind. So this investor currently has this one home. Now, bridge financing is going to allow this investor to take this home as a down payment and instead to acquire two properties. So you see this column on the right-hand side. We've got double the income-producing asset. Now, what they've given up is they've gone from an $835 positive cash flow to $130 positive cash flow. So in the short run, it is true that they have given up some cash flow. For the next 15 years of the loan, they will have a reduced monthly cash flow. That's what they give up. But let's talk about what they get. What they get, because the reason to pursue this strategy is when you're taking a long-term approach and you're looking 10, 15 years down the road. In year 16 and beyond, you've got double the cash flow. So instead of having $835 from now to eternity, you've got double the cash flow. You've got $1,655, but equally important, you've got market appreciation on two investment properties instead of one, and you've got rental increases on two properties instead of one. That is, in a nutshell,
effectively what you've done, Andrea, if I can just define this a little bit more, is by doubling the asset base, you're doubling the income in the future, but you're also doubling your equity, because effectively the tenant is paying for that equity for you.
That's correct.
And at the same time, it becomes an extremely efficient way to save on tax. So if you've only got that one property on the left-hand side, and you're cash flowing at $835 a month, at the end of the year, you're going to have roughly $1,200 somewhere around there in your bank account. And if you own a couple of those properties, you're going to end up paying tax on those properties. So the choice here is not only the benefit of finance and leverage, but it's also the benefit of you're going to be spending some money on tax anyway, which will reduce that cash flow slightly, because the cash flow you're talking about over there is pre-tax cash flow. By taking finance, that's obviously the interest is tax deductible, which means you're doubling the asset base, but the IRS is effectively helping you pay for the second property.
That is absolutely true. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're looking at this cash flow, you've got these dollars coming in, and they're going to be sitting in a savings account in the United States. Now, sure, you could, you know, build it up over the next 10, 15 years and eventually use that to buy a second property, but wouldn't you prefer to invest in a property today? I mean, you started off this by saying someone who invested in a property 2 years ago has already seen some great capital growth. Well, it's the same thing here. You're going to be able to double your portfolio today and start immediately receiving that capital growth, as well as things like tax benefits that you were just mentioning. The other thing that, and sorry, there's a question up as well about the interest rate. Yes, it is a fixed interest rate. So when I say the monthly principal and interest, that will remain the same over the entire 15 years of the note, okay? The last point I want to make is that you also will be developing a credit history in the United States. By using Bridge Capital, you will be developing this credit history, and I know that that is a priority for a lot of our international investors as well.
I just want to explain to people why this is a priority. A lot of people are asking, you know, so this is obviously private finance money or mezzanine finance, or you know, there's a whole bunch of names for it, but it's not finance that's coming directly from a bank, because obviously in the USA, if it was coming directly from a bank, would be at an extremely low interest rate. But the bottom line is, in the USA, it's very, very difficult to get finance directly from a bank. So
it's basically impossible.
Yeah, it's basically impossible.
Until you've built up a credit rating for 2 years plus, it's impossible as a non-resident to get financing from a bank.
Yeah. And what's very powerful about this system is by developing your credit history here. I know that that one of the benefits of going through Bridge Capital is that you have no prepayment penalties. So you can pay down the loan with Andrea at any time you choose, and you're not going to get hammered with a penalty for settlement. Now, this is very, very powerful, because if you use that positive cash flow that she's talking about here, that $130 a month, to roll into the rent, or at least the loan repayment, you can actually settle the house in about 10 years, roughly. So it's an extremely powerful way to grow the portfolio. And at the same time, if you do the credit history thing within 2 years, and Andrea is quite willing to do this, we talk about it openly, with no prepayment penalties, it means you should have a credit history. And obviously at IPS, we're actively looking to help people grow their portfolios. We're not here to sell you one house individually and then sit on our laurels and say we've got our job done. We're here to help you grow your wealth. So we want to make sure that sometime in the foreseeable future, you're able to get finance from a bank in the USA. And when you are, it will be at a lower rate, and that will release even more cash flow and more equity that you can then decide to either pay down the loan with Bridge Capital or roll into new properties.
But also, to be honest, Andrea, will you just talk a little bit about the credit rating that they build by taking the finance through you? Because I know that normally when people talk about private money or hard money, they don't necessarily build a credit rating, but with you, they do. And for me, that's critical in terms of the long-term strategy.
Sure. So Bridge Capital is a private finance. We are a private company. However, all of our loans are serviced by a local Fannie Mae approved bank in Memphis, Tennessee. So what that allows you to do, because we are connected with this bank, you'll have all the ability to establish a credit history that any LLC, now I know that most of your investors are acquiring their investment under LLCs. So let me be clear about this as well. In the United States, there are two different types of credit. There's the credit that an individual attains, and an individual would attain what's actually called a credit report, and that would be through the 3 credit bureaus. That's only available for individuals. LLCs, which are companies, are able to have an actual credit history. So what we would be able to offer, well, excuse me, Magna Bank, which again is a Fannie Mae approved loan servicer would be able to provide a credit history. So, and as you said, we have no prepayment penalty. So when you go to apply for financing somewhere else, this LLC will have this credit history and will have the backing that you wouldn't have if you weren't financing.
One other thing that I think is very important, Andrea, thanks for bringing that up, is that our good friend, the class clown, likes to help a lot of people invest in America in their own personal name. And for me, that's just blatantly negligent, because not only is there a risk in terms of getting sued, but much more importantly, in terms of building your wealth and building your global portfolio. As you just mentioned, there's two different types of credit ratings. There's one in your personal name and there's one through an LLC. Now, unless you actually immigrate to America, you'll never ever be able to get financing through your personal name, because you'll never actually get a security number. It's called a social security number.
Yeah. Correct.
You don't get a social security number unless you live there. So it's impossible. So if you buy a property through the class clown in your own name, you will remain a clown for a long time, because you'll never ever be able to get financing. Whereas if you buy it through an LLC, and trust me, our peers doesn't enjoy the effort and the hassle of setting up the LLCs. We earn no money out of it. But we do it because it's in the best interest of the client, and we do it because that's how we buy our own property, so that we can build this credit rating that Andrea is talking about, and we have it on good authority from Wells Fargo, that if you have a good credit rating for about 2 years, then you'll be able to get access to traditional financing from one of the big banks.
Right, and I will confirm we have no prepayment penalties. So whenever you're able to obtain additional financing, you can pay bridge off, and you will only pay what the outstanding balance is on the financing.
Perfect, thank you.
The last thing I want to cover is, I know that you have some people on this call who are just getting into the market for the first time. So I want to talk about a little bit how to use bridge financing if you are a first-time investor. So really, the scenario is the same. It's just a matter of, given everybody has a certain amount of cash that they are willing to invest in U.S. properties. The question is, do you want to use your cash to invest outright, or use financing, again, to double your portfolio? So using the exact same example, let's say I have an investor who has approximately $120,000 that they have set aside to invest in U.S. rental properties. Their choice is going to be, and I'm saying 120 just to keep the numbers round, their choice is they can purchase that first income producing property for $117,000 plus closing cost. Again, they will have the monthly cash flow of $835, and they'll have the market appreciation and the rental increases on one home. So that is one option. However, Bridge Capital offers 50% down payment financing. So what we will allow you to do is take that same $120,000 as a first-time investor, and instead of investing in one income-producing asset, invest in 2 income-producing assets. So leverage your money, use the same down payment, but now you have 2 properties. What you're going to give up is cash flow in the short run, again, instead of $835, $130, but what you're going to get in return is double the cash flow, double the appreciation, double the rent increases in the long run, as well as the credit history. So I just wanted to be sure to point out that the example works the same whether you're a first-time investor or somebody who's previously taken action.
And just to bring this home is that for a lot of people, they're thinking on the right path and they want to grow their portfolio, but they need a place to start. I know I was in that boat 2 years ago where I needed to start. I needed to buy my first place in America, and I had a limited budget. You know, I had what I had in the bank account. And what this does is it gives you the ability to go in with a lower entry point to the States. I mean, if you're looking at buying one property in the USA just to get the portfolio started, and then maybe buy another one next year, another one the year after, you know, now you only need to put down much more amount, 50% in this particular case, but we can sometimes go to 60% of the home's value as a down payment from the investor side. So this is very, very powerful. It means you can enter the market at a lower entry point.
Absolutely.
Can I just say something?
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone always talks about the upside and the beauty of appreciation and the fact that you're getting more you're getting more with your money and you're getting more income and everything else. But everyone also knows that there's two sides of the coin to leverage. You've got the upside and the downside.
Yeah, the risk.
The risk. And I think it's very important that we discuss that and go into that in quite a lot of detail as well. So when you mentioned that Andrea jumped on a plane and came through to Atlanta, because the big difference between America and South Africa is that in South Africa, they lend money based on your income. So I don't care how clever your structure is, whether it's a trust, a CC, or P2 Limited. They still want to know who's behind it. Who is Scott Picken? How much does Scott Picken earn? Can he afford the property, whether it's residential or commercial? They want to know the income stream and how it's going to work. What was very interesting for me was that Andrea, both in Memphis and then obviously when she came to understand Atlanta, is much more interested in the person on the ground, the partner on the ground, the sustainability of the partner, the sustainability of the property, and the sustainability of the income. And Andrea, if you could just share a little bit about it, because I know that Brendan and I and the rest of everyone else on the buyer's trip was blown away by your ability to ask all the right questions to find the right partners. Because the bottom line is you don't want people to make mistakes. And tell them a little bit about your history in terms of how many people you've actually defaulted on over the last 6 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to cover the risk side, please.
Absolutely. Actually, you gave me the perfect transition, because what we like to say is, and I legitimately mean this, is Bridge Capital will only be as successful as our investors. So we are because at the end of the day, we're going to be in this transaction with you for the next 15 years. So we are going to spend a lot of time on the front end to make sure that you're being set up for success. I can tell you that there are a lot of people that come, a lot of partners, a lot of what I would call wholesalers. Those are your team members who are acquiring the properties and selling them to foreign investors. We turn down more offers than we accept. We are incredibly picky about who we work with, because I know that if this investment doesn't work for the next 15, 20 years, then I don't have a business model. Bridge Capital has been in existence for 5 years. We have lent on over 1,000 loans, and we have never, ever foreclosed. We haven't had to take back a single property. The reason for that, so if you didn't hear, that's 0 is the answer to your question. The reason for that is we spend a lot of time, 1, looking at the numbers. You can already see I'm a number girl. But 2, looking at the partners, because you alluded to this at the beginning. At the end of the day, if you don't have the right partners, if you don't have somebody who can source a property, the right property, in the right area, and do what I call a non-deferred maintenance, looking at the rehab and making sure they're rehabbing it on the beginning correctly. What I mean by that is, if it needs a new roof, they're not patching it, they're putting on a new roof. If the HVAC has less than 3 or 5 years, they're replacing it now. They're not making it the investor's problem. And finally, and by far most importantly, is your property management. So what you saw me do on the bus tour is grill that poor property manager, and he's probably still recovering from it. But that's my job, because I am your partner.
I think we're all recovering from it.
Yeah, we're all recovering from it. What was extremely powerful about that particular thing, if you go watch that video, everybody, you'll see Andrea give Anthony a proper grilling, because she needs to evaluate their ability to collect on the rental, because that's the risk, on the downside. And if they can't collect on the rent, you're responsible to pay the bond. Obviously, you're going to make sure that there's money in the bank account there as a bit of a buffer in case there's a slight rental, delay or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's the quality of the management and their ability to collect the rent that determines whether your investment works or not.
But I also think when you consider what's happened to the American market in the last 6 years, and the fact that they've got over 1,000 mortgages out there, and the fact they haven't had to default on one person, stands very true to the type of people they partner with.
It's all about your team. At the end of the day, it is about having the right team. And we spend a lot of time, we have never lent in a market without flying out there in person, going out and seeing the properties, meeting with all of the people on the team, and really doing our due diligence. We believe that that is our responsibility as the lender, to have done the due diligence on the front end and to make sure that the investor is being set up for success. So we do that to make sure that these are good properties, that they are going to be, I don't want to ever have to default. I hope that when we have this conversation 10 years from now, I'll still be able to say that my number is 0. That is my goal. And I believe that I can do that as long as I do all the legwork on the front end to make sure we have the right people on the team.
But this is powerful stuff, because what's quite a common thing in the USA is what's called predatory lenders, where they actively give you expensive finance on bad properties in bad areas with bad tenants, purely so that they can foreclose on you sometime in the future, because they know you're not going to be able to collect the rent, and if you're far away, you're not going to be watching it that carefully, and it gives them an opportunity to foreclose on the person and then take the property at half the value. And that's what predatory lending is in the USA. And what's important here is the quality of the partners. And the fact that they've never taken a property back means they're the right type of person that we need to be working with. And that's powerful.
I appreciate that, because yes, we really take our responsibility as a partner seriously. I want to work with your investors, and I'm going to spend the time on the front end to make sure that they understand the transaction. So I don't want to quote you and tell you that the free cash flow is 200 if I think it's going to be 50, because then I'm just setting you up for failure, and none of us are going to continue growing our business if we do that. I care very greatly about my reputation, so I'm going to be really careful on the front end to make sure that whatever promise I make, I will 100% stand by it.
That's fantastic. We've got a couple of questions here, like does the finance cover 50% of the renovation costs? No, in this case, with RPS, you're buying the fully baked cake. So the property is it's fully renovated, it's tenant ready, it's 100% ready to be lived in, and the price includes all of that. So the finance covers 50% of the purchase price of the house, so that includes everything.
It's an end-to-end solution.
Yeah, end-to-end solution. That's what we're about here. We really want to help people do it with the least amount of effort. We do go through a lot of effort to do that, but we try and look after the people. I'd like to ask you a quick question, Andrea. What did you think of RJ in Atlanta? Now, RJ is our partner in Atlanta. He's the guy that sources the properties, renovates them, places tenants in them, looks after them over the long term, does all the maintenance, answers the phone when the toilet's backed up, when the air conditioning unit's not working, all of that type of stuff. What was your opinion?
Okay, I'm going to give you a very honest answer because it's the only thing I know how to do, okay? I would never want to work for the guy, but I would want to buy properties from him. And let me tell you why. I wouldn't want to work for him because he rides his crew like you wouldn't believe. I mean, he was on the phone yelling at people for not dusting the tops of ceiling fans. Seriously, please don't make me go work for that guy because I think I would never get to sleep. But honestly, if I'm going to invest in property in the United States, that's exactly who I want to buy it from, because he's not going to let any details slip through. He is going to tightly control it, and he's the type of partner that I want.
And Andrea, this is my interest, because a lot of South Africans here, me and Brendan and the rest of the RPS team, talk about RJ and the quality of what he does, and obviously John came out and did the extravaganza and talked about it, but it all sounds too good to be true. And when you were sitting in Memphis and I persuaded you to come to Atlanta and I sung his high praises, did it wow you, or was it better than what you see elsewhere in America? I mean, is it something that we have the credentials to rave about? Because we certainly know all the buyers that come on the buyers trip love what they see.
I really loved the properties that I saw, and I was sending, as I was sitting on the bus, I was sending pictures back to our management team at Bridge Capital, and all the responses I were getting were incredibly favorable. You were showing me some really high-quality properties. RJ knows what he's doing. He is sourcing excellent properties. He is doing a rehab job, a renovation job that is going to stand the test of time, and he has a property manager who knows how to get it rented and how to keep the tenants there. I loved what I saw. I thought it was incredible.
Awesome. And this is my interest, because obviously we were introduced to you by the guys at Marathon, and again on our buyers tour, people often are very sort of wild by the Hewlett and Eric and their team there. I mean, you clearly choose the best partners in America. I mean, what is your experience of working with Marathon? And I mean, you've obviously worked with them for a long time in terms of things like collecting the rent and all that.
Yeah, we have worked with Marathon for a long time, and they have a great track record in the Memphis market. Obviously, Memphis properties are different than Atlanta properties, and you invest in different markets for different reason. We have all of our investors who have worked with Marathon and Hewlett have been very happy with them. I know that you've had repeat clients who have invested with them in the past and are coming back as well. We wouldn't continue to work with them if we didn't believe in the quality of their product. We really do. I am being legitimate when I say, first, we turn more people down than we agree to do business with by far, and second, we fire people, because sometimes you'll find with wholesalers that they'll do a good job for a while, and then as they start to grow, they kind of let things slip through the cracks. And actually, go back to RJ for a second. That's what I loved about him. He's never going to let anything slip through the cracks. But we've seen that with other wholesalers, that they get to the point where they're just trying to grow and they're letting their quality sacrifice. In that case, if I believed that about Marathon, I'd tell you that we're no longer interested in working with Marathon. That's not the case. We still go out and we look at their properties, and we're happy with the quality product they're bringing to the market.
And just in my interest, another thing, you asked a lot of questions on in terms of location. I know that RJ specifically focuses on the bedroom suburbs, quality houses for middle-income America. And you were actually on the bus when we asked one of those guys, where are we? And he was like, oh, no, there's a highway 3 miles from here, and there's work there and everything else. I mean, you know Atlanta well. And I found it very interesting that what Don, Chin, and RJ have been telling us for a long time, you guys have the exact same fundamentals in terms of where you invest and where you don't invest, in terms of the inner circle and the outer circle. Could you just explain a little bit about that? Because I think the one thing people often fail to forget is that one of the reasons I like getting bank financing is that it actually adds an extra layer of protection in terms of it's also your money that you're putting against the property, and so you're going to make sure that the area and the property is to a certain standard, as well as me in terms of the 50% I'm putting down. So if you just explain a little bit about that, and that's one of the reasons that you go to places like Atlanta to check it all out.
Sure, and that's why every time we open a new market, we are very cautious. We're going to do our vetting, because what you need to know in each market, and I don't know how it is in South Africa, but I can tell you in the United States that you can be in a market where this neighborhood is good, but half a mile to the west or half a mile to the east is an area you don't want to be in. So you have to be very careful about the areas you enter and where great rental properties are. Atlanta is a unique market because it's one of the markets where people are a little bit more willing to drive. So, in Memphis, where people are going to live close by their jobs, so usually you're going to look like, for an example, one area in Memphis, there's a large Nike facility. So you've got lots and lots of jobs there and tons of rental properties within a couple of miles. That works well for Memphis. Atlanta is different. Even if people live in the inner city in Atlanta, even if they work in the inner city in Atlanta, they want to live on the outskirts. They want to live in the suburbs because that's the areas they feel safe in. And I'm talking about renters as well as homeowners. That's the areas they feel safe in. That's the part of town they want to come to. So really knowing a market and having that insider knowledge is essential. And you're right, I keep saying it, Bridge Capital is going to be in this transaction with you for the next 15 to 20 years. We want to make sure you're set up for success, because if not, I won't be able to keep my track record of never having to have a loan default.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your detailed answers, Dante. I want to just show somebody what we've been doing here at RPS, because we've got some questions about interest rates and we've got some questions about the terms of the loan and that type of stuff. So just some of the number crunching that I've been doing, and you can probably see it on your screen over there, for the client. So I've been spending a lot of time building models when I should have been on holiday with my wife and family. But I love this stuff so much that I kind of can't help myself. So let me just put it up here. Now this is not Andrea's spreadsheet. This is just mine. It's very much a hard, working spreadsheet. It's not really something I share often with clients. It's really just something for me to work off of So as soon as you guys can see the screen, just let me know. Just close the question. Okay, so everybody can see my. Cool. So everybody can see my screen. Got it? Okay, perfect. Now this is a simple property, almost exactly what Andrea was showing you. It's a property in Atlanta. It's on Pebble Road, and this is the purchase price of it. It's currently available, and there's a rental income, and it's broken down with management and property taxes and homeowners association fees and all this type of stuff. If you roll a positive cash flow in, so if you have to lay out $53,000 in cash to buy this house with finance from Andrea, and you're going to pay 12% interest. Now, a lot of people balk at this interest, and I just want to say that it is what it is. What it's doing is it's giving you the ability to get into the USA market. And in terms of cash flow, it really doesn't make that much difference. If we look at the repayments over here, if we change that to 10%, it literally changes it by like, in real dollar terms, like $72 or $73 a month. If we bring that down to 8.5%, which is our interest rate in South Africa, you know, if we look at that now, the actual cash flow is very between. But what it does is it gives you the ability to get this release, and by so doing, you end up with getting some pre-equity by the tenant actually paying it all for you. But what we've been doing,
and also most importantly, there are options out there with seller financing and stuff like that that might be at 8.5%, but you're not getting the credit rate.
Exactly.
It's not from a bank profit.
Yeah, it's not from a bank.
And there could also
be.
There could also be prepayment penalties, and that will lock you into that for the long term. And I just want to mention, because I see another question, I'm glad you brought up this example, because this is one using just one property. So to answer the question, yes, we can do a 50% down financing on one property.
Yes, so we can do it. So what I've been doing, obviously, we spent a bit of time on this to show people how to double their portfolio, and we've got quite a few people that have bought properties from us in the past. So in this particular case, the client had 3 properties in Atlanta, and we were looking at buying 3 equivalent properties. And as a result, if we look at the before picture, he's currently earning about $2,800 a month net cash flow. And once this is all done, in 10 years' time, he's going to have about $5,300 a month net cash flow. And this is not counting rental increases. And at the same time, he's going to have free equity of roughly $362,000. Once again, not counting any capital growth whatsoever. I mean, this is powerful stuff. This is ultimately the benefit of leverage at the end of the day. And one of the things that we need to bear in mind over here is that in terms of risk, the risk is extremely low if the financing is at this level because there's positive cash flow going in. At the same time, you'll see here that I'm very conservative, and I do a 3-month buffer on the calculation to ensure that there's money in your bank. Obviously, it's a client's money. It's physically in his bank account, and it's there available so that
or her bank account.
Or her bank account, because we're finding a lot more and more women are buying properties for themselves in America. They're smarter than some of my friends, I must say. What we do is I like being conservative. So I load the account with a little bit of extra money to ensure that there is money over there. And I see some people are asking, are we willing to share the spreadsheet? Yeah, you know, obviously if you're one of our clients, we'll definitely share it with you. That's not a problem at all. The whole point of this spreadsheet, this is a working one. Andrea does a much neater one, you know, where it's a lot more specific. But what I'm doing here is I'm actively trying to figure out the most risk-free way to move a person from where he is right now on his income to where he wants to be in the future as fast and as efficiently as possible. And what I do is I measure.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
I want to say something because you bring up a really good point. So I mentioned how we vetted RJ and Hewlett and some of the other people, wholesalers we work with. The truth of the matter is, let's be honest, on the trip I spent with you, I was also vetting you because what I wanted to see is that you care about your investors. Because let's be honest, there are a lot of promoters out there who don't give a darn about their investors. They're just trying to do a quick flip and then, get as much money as they can and then run away with it. What I love about the approach, first of all, and if I haven't said this, I should have said this at the beginning, your investment group, the people that you had on that bus, were amazing. And I have not stopped talking about that trip since I've come home. I mean, forget about at work. Like, I've told my mom about the people I met. I've told my girlfriends. I was just blown away by the sophistication of the investors on your trip. And I really, really, truly was. But what I love about you guys is, just like you, I'm looking at those numbers. I want to see that they're set up for success, and I love that you are trying to develop this partnership, and you're making sure that whatever transaction that you get your clients in is a good transaction from the client's perspective, not just from our perspective.
Yes, that's exactly what we're about here. I mean, we do care, and it's a hell of a thing to experience on the buyer's trip. I'm glad you're talking about it. So can you imagine meeting a whole country full of us?
I cannot wait to meet a whole country full of you.
Okay, well, that brings us to the next thing. Who would like to meet Andrea in person? I want to see some interactivity. I want to see some questions, a hand up, or something that says you want to meet Andrea in person.
Just while we're doing that, Alan's asked a question. He said, what is your history and trend on vacancies in your portfolio? Alan, we're in a very privileged position that we've been working with RJ since April last year. We've invested a lot ourselves, but also our clients have invested a lot. And one of the reasons we're so comfortable is not just Andrea's sentiment, but also just the track record in terms of the rental, the fact that the rents are paid on time, the fact that it works. Basically, the system works. As John Chin always says, you're not buying a property, you're buying into a system. And it does work, and that's why we've got the comfort in terms of the financing, in terms of where we, what is actually happening in Atlanta. So we can actually give you that. We've got all the vacancies, the trends, we've got all the exact numbers on it. But honestly, you can ask any client, and I can give you any client you want to speak to. The guys that have come and invested specifically in Atlanta are some of the happiest out of our portfolio of investors. So you're asking questions. Someone said, what does she look like?
I actually thought I was going to be on the webcam today.
No, I think we can't do that much on this internet. That's asking a little bit too much. To do webcam and video broadcasting, I don't know.
Okay, well then everyone will have to come out and meet me in person.
Okay, cool. So you guys have to come out and see what she looks like in person. We'll keep a bit of intrigue over here. So we've got...
So many of the comments cannot be repeated on this line. They're women and children.
Yeah, this is getting out of hand, guys. Calm down. So okay, let's just...
I'll give the famous of them. Andrea, someone says you sound cute on the telephone.
And that's the
I'll take the compliment.
Okay. What I feel is about, and what we've talked about so often, is the quality of the partners. And we've got a surprise for everybody. Now, we started this USA Investors Club Breakfast a while ago. We are bringing Andrea out to meet everybody in South Africa. We're also bringing out John Chin for all of our investor breakfasts. I encourage you guys now to go to these links and go and register right now. I'm actually going to post them in the questions box in a couple of seconds, so just stay there. I will also email everybody the links. Stay there. I will also email everybody the links directly after this webinar to make sure that you can register. About networking. It's about meeting other people that are either current investors in the USA so that they can tell their stories, both good and bad. I mean, we've had bad stories as well, and it's not whether the story is bad, it's how we deal with that bad situation. That's what defines whether we're good at what we do or whether we're bad at what we do.
And one of the best things about the USA Investors Club breakfast is that you get to share in that knowledge with other people that are active in the market right now. They might not have even bought through us. They might have bought through somebody else. They might be looking at the USA from a commercial perspective or from, an office perspective or industrial. Who knows? But there's a lot to learn over there. And what we're not going to be doing is doing the same thing we did last time and giving you the same information, because the USA market changes so fast that every time we go there, it's like a different country. I promise you. The headlines are different. The market has moved. The prices have moved. The partners have got new opportunities. I mean, we're talking about land opportunities in North Dakota and office opportunities in both Orlando and North Dakota. And we've got something exciting for everybody that bought in Orlando too, because we've managed to convince Andrea to go through to Orlando and check out our partners there. So everybody who's bought through us should have an opportunity to double their portfolio, and anybody who's looking to buy property in the States can come and learn from us. And whether you use the information to buy through us or whether you use the information to fly over there on your own and do it yourself, it's really up to you. But what we're about is about sharing that information. So the Investor Club breakfasts are there. Please guys can register. For most people, if you have bought from us before, you'll be able to come for free as a platinum client, and you can bring a guest with you. You just need to tell us who the guest is so that we make sure we've got a name tag for them, because we don't want people just bobbing around and we don't know who they are. So if you do want to bring in guests, it's completely for free if you bought first before. The reason we charge for the breakfast if you haven't bought from us before is because we need to pay all of the costs related to actually hosting the event. We've got to pay for the breakfast. We've got to pay for the venue hire, for all of the stuff that goes with it. So it's really an event that costs a hell of a lot of money.
And mostly, I mean, at the end of the day, trust me, the token gesture that people are paying towards the breakfast is nothing in the big picture. I mean, we've got people flying out from America to guests, and a lot of people say to me, so you're going to give us the 5 trends again. And that's not the point. Like, our guests this time are John, and I can actually see John's online. So John and Andre are coming out, and we're actually going to do a Q&A with them. I mean, both of them are two of the more intelligent, more sophisticated, and more structured people I've met in America. And my aim on that event, along with the rest of our investors, is to try and get as much knowledge out of them at those breakfasts. So it's to be as interactive as possible. Think of as many questions as you can. Email me questions beforehand if you want to, because that's our purpose, to be as interactive as possible. And while we've actually got John and Andrea online, guys, why should people come along? What value will you guys bring to the table while you're out here in South Africa?
Oh, I am
Putting
so...
John on the spot because you didn't know he was going to talk.
Is he able to talk? Just unmute him, man.
Yeah. Well, then I'll take it first.
Okay, yeah.
To me, I would love to meet with your investors, because the more I can understand your investors, the more I can try to really understand what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and how I can assist them in that. I really, really do want to see it from the investor's chair. I want to understand how they're thinking, what they're thinking. Like when I keep going back to that bus trip, I learned so much from your group on that bus trip, and I came home and I just wouldn't stop talking about it, because when I learned things like developing a credit history is incredibly important for South Africans, that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, well, how can Bridge Capital do a better job? How can we better contribute to what your investors are trying to accomplish? So I am really looking forward to learning as much from your investors as hopefully the information I share with them.
Just very interesting. Spreadsheet available, the detailed one where you go into each property and analyze the ability and whether the rent will cover the interest, etc., etc. Do you have that available that you could show us quickly?
Yeah, if you want to put my screen back on, I'll throw it up. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. This is an example, and this is actually the example I was doing today.
Hang on, just two seconds. Okay, there are. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is the example I was doing today. So what I would love to do is sit down with each of your investors, whether they have previously taken action and already have investment properties in the United States, or they are first-time investors. What I'm going to do is look at the properties that they are considering and show them how it will work. So I know that there's a whole bunch of numbers on this spreadsheet. What I would love to have the ability to do is kind of go through number by number and show, here's the cash flow, here are your returns, here's what financing would look like. You know, if we put this on a 15-year term, well, maybe you're interested in paying it off at a quicker rate, that you're not looking for monthly cash flow. You want to pay off this financing as quickly as possible. We can model this and work with this to meet your goals. And that's why I say I really want to talk to your investors, because if I can understand their goals, I'm going to try to structure it however I can, because it's all about your investors accomplishing their goals.
No, fantastic. Well, I mean, this is the reason I just wanted to bring this up is that this is what you actually do specifically on every property. It was quite interesting on the bus. You were sitting in the back of the bus crunching all the numbers as RJ gave out our forms. And it actually allows someone to really see not only the picture, but also the movie in terms of where that property is going to be over the long term. You know, so it's actually your balance sheet and your P&L all put into one. And it's very, very important, you know, for the sophisticated investors to want to understand the numbers, the left-brainers out there that really want to get into the detail. The beauty of having John and Andrea coming out is that John can sit and talk about the properties in the area, and Andrea can help with the financing, and Brendan can actually be the bridge between the two. And what he's already done successfully for clients is sit and understand what their portfolio is at the moment, understand what their objectives are, and a bit like a GPS machine, provide a map from where they are to where they want to get to it by using John and Andrea's knowledge.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Is I try and build it out according to the client's needs, using their knowledge and working with them.
Okay, just for interest, before you come out, will we have an answer for the people who bought cash in Orlando?
We're actively working on, I believe, 15 deals with you right now, and I believe we've already approved quite a few of them. Any ones that we haven't approved, we're just pending the loan applications.
Okay. Well, that's
Did you say Orlando? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misheard you. I don't know the answer to that. You and I will have to talk about that offline. I'm sorry, I misheard you.
So guys, we got a couple of weeks before the Investor Club breakfast, but we'll have an answer for everybody that's watching Orlando, hopefully by then, one way or the other. And but best of all is we're also going to be running some serious specials at these Investor Club breakfasts. We're working on something here, and I might be speaking out of turn, but I think we might be able to give away 2 properties. Now, guys, this is massive. I suggest you book for your breakfast because whoever, you know, somebody might get lucky. We're going to be giving away 1 in Cape Town and 1 in Johannesburg. This is subject to approval. We're still in the negotiation phase right now, so it might not happen. But right now, as it stands, there's probably about a 90% chance that we're going to be giving away 2 properties. So this is massive, people. I suggest you come out to the Investor Club breakfast and maybe you're one of the lucky few.
Just a quick one. It's been asked quite a few times, and I think, Andrea, if you can just clear it up. Is the rate fixed?
Yes. We on all of our loans, we have 12% interest, and it's fixed over the lifetime of the loan.
Okay. So I'm just looking through all the questions that have been the questions through the evening. I'm just making sure that we've covered them. And if anyone's got any other questions, please fire through now.
One of them is this an access bond facility? So here in South Africa, we have a facility where you can load extra money into the bond and it reduces the repayments. But if you need to take it out again, you can, literally, you know, by logging onto your internet banking and transferring it out. Andrea, can you just answer that for us, please?
No, I don't think that would work with this. Because if you pay down the loan, you can't. If I'm understanding what you're saying, if you were to pay down the, like, you know, make extra payments, you couldn't pull that money back out. Is that the question?
Yes, that's correct. That's the question.
No, we're not set up to do that.
That's 100%. So basically what you're saying is that if you put extra payments into the bond, it reduces the principal amount, but you can't withdraw that again.
That is correct. Correct.
There's another question here. Does this only work for freehold props or for wealth migrates? As I'm sure you can appreciate, the reason that I sat right next to Andrea when we sat at the lunch table is I always like to sit next to the people with the money. And said to me that we'll run out of property before she runs out of money. So to answer your question, Mark, we're sitting on that one, and it's really deal specific in terms of where we're at. Can I get finance 50% on just one or two? That's been asked a few times, but we did answer it, and I think it's important just to understand that you definitely can finance now to start off with. In the same here with rental application. Okay, so someone's asked about evictions, etc.
Well, can I address that for a second? I know that with properties, obviously, there will, but not every time, right? So obviously that's move out, you want to make sure that you're as quick as possible. Now, the fact of the matter is there could be a time when you do have an extended vacancy. At Bridge Capital, I've said we've never taken back a property. We have had to restructure 2 loans. Now remember, we've made over 1,000 loans. We've had to restructure 2 loans. On one case, it was because the rent came in lower than projected. And let me tell you, that's something I track very closely to see if when the property managers are quoting their rent, if they're actually making their rent targets. That's very important to us as it is to your investors. But unfortunately, I had one investor who their property fell a little bit short, and instead of being a positive cash flow, it ended up being negative cash flow. What we did at Bridge Capital, we didn't want to put this investor in a situation where they were coming out of pocket every month. It wasn't realistic in this situation. So we restructured the loan. We made it a little bit longer of a term so that that investor wasn't in a bad situation. The second time we restructured a loan, which was something similar, an investor who had a vacancy period higher than normal. Now, to be fair, they had bought a lower end property, probably the lowest end that we would rent on, and they ended up in it. If you don't know this, when you go into the lower end, a danger that you are taking is that you'll end up with more vacancies. That happened to this investor, and we ended up restructuring the loan because, again, it's not our goal to take these properties back. We want our investors to be successful. I don't want to have to restructure my loan, but I would much rather work with the investor and try to find out a way that they can keep their property and be successful than be aggressive and take back a property, because that's not my goal.
Well, I mean, that's fascinating tonight, because I think that answers Adam's question earlier, because, anyone who's a sophisticated investor understands that property is about people and things happen. So it's very good to know that because a lot of people, it gives them a comfort level in terms of the balance, if there is a vacancy or something. So I think that's pretty important. What about this one here? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I think that actually is one of the things that I think you'll find that you like working about Bridge Capital is what you found when you met me on a Thursday afternoon and I was on a plane with you Friday at 8:30 a.m. Right? We can move.
I did actually get quite a big shock, because most people know that on Thursday night we go out on Beale Street. So I wasn't on top of my game when I jumped on the plane, and suddenly I was like, hang on, what are you going to do next week?
Well, I think it speaks to our organization. We have the flexibility that a private lender has, which a bank would not. So I do have the flexibility. I have the flexibility to talk to investors, to understand what they're doing, and if I need to make a change, if I need to revise things because it makes more sense. Bridge Capital always says we are a common sense lender. If I can make it make sense and I can see your investors being set up for success, if I need to restructure the loan, if I need to consider another solution, we have the flexibility to be able to do that.
And I think just to give you credit there, I've been trying to get a banker, both from Bank of America and Wells Fargo, out to South Africa for over a year now. I've gone to every level of the bank, bar the bloody CEO, and every one of them had an excuse. I think I was joking with Andre about, the personal liability insurance and everything. I mean, the amount of excuses I've heard. And, I asked you to come, and I said, look, John's coming, and it's going to be a huge opportunity. And, you and Scott jumped all over it. And we really appreciate it, because there's a huge amount of sophisticated South Africans that want to take advantage of the overseas market. A a lot of them and their friends have been burnt by what a word we call it here in South Africa, skelms, basically people that are just doing dodgy stuff. And what we're really trying to do is rebuild that trust and to provide a transparent and consistent solution that's sustainable for the future. And the only way we believe that that's possible is if people get on the bus and actually come to America and meet the partners and see what's happening on the ground. And if they can't do that, the only other way to do it is to get you guys to come to South Africa. That trust, all the tough questions. My logic is ask every question we can, because then you're really going to understand it and understand that the level of detail, and that this is not some sophisticated scam, but something that's sustainable. Just another question here. Can you settle at any time without penalties? We have answered that, but yes, there's no penalties. So if, for example, you would get credit to Wells Fargo in 2 years' time, you can settle. She needs to know how to roll access bonds in South Africa. To be honest, I haven't met an American who knows what an access bond is yet. I don't think it's common practice at all in America. What happens in events of how it's laundering from that one? Okay, that's a good question.
I covered that earlier when you looked at my spreadsheet. So most people, what we do is we just load a little bit of cash into your bank account in America, so that you have a little bit of a buffer there. But if the property is still in rehab for whatever reason, or is not tenanted from day one, or whatever the case may be, that the loan repayment can go off without any problems. That being said, Andrea has helped us in the past where they've structured it for the first repayment to go off the following month when it was still in the process of closing and tenants moving in. So we have seen flexibility on that side too.
Andrea, this is a question for you. Cash has asked, hi everyone, so Andrea and John, can you define a good candidate for the opportunity, and ideally what is the free cash you usually they should have available? So I'm not really sure. I presume the cash you're asking, what is a good property and what sort of cash you should have available. So if you're looking in Memphis, as an example, you can start with about $30,000 cash, so that's roughly 300,000 rand. And in Atlanta, you're probably looking at closer to $55,000, so roughly 550,000 rand cash that would be required to get started in terms of getting into the market.
Yeah, to buy your first property.
I always say I've been investing offshore. I bought my first house in London at the age of 24. I always say to people, it's very easy to get started in South Africa, but very difficult to keep going. Whereas overseas, it's very difficult to get started, but very easy to keep going. That's pretty much the whole essence of it. So jet fuel on the fire in terms of exploding their portfolio in terms of the growth.
And that's just it. We're constantly looking at ways to grow both as a business but also as people, and we've got to extend our network consistently in order to get the benefit of the human leverage that we're applying here, which is the quality of our partners, and that's what the Investors Club is all about. It's about the human leverage element, which is very difficult to measure. We can go through numbers over here from the top down and from each side, but at the end of the day, it's who you choose to deal with that defines whether your businesses or investments or anything really works.
Just the last question here. I'm conscious of the time here. Is the loan fixed at 15 years, or can it be 20 or 50 years? Andrea, would you mind answering that?
Sure. Right now, we have each of our loans defined by market. So we are working in Memphis with some 20-year product, and in Atlanta, we're doing 15-year product. Really, what we're trying to look at is the deal from deal to deal. And again, for us, it's all about the cash flow. So I might look at something on a 15-year term and make sure that it has sufficient cash flow. But there are times that I can consider a longer term if, depending on the actual specifics of that deal.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So, Brendan, we've pretty much covered all the questions. If you wouldn't mind just reminding me, what are the ways forward now? I'm not sure, John, if you're there, just shout. I have unmuted you, or whether you're sleeping at your chair. I mean, what are the best ways forward? I mean, there's kind of two major calls to action.
Two major calls to action. The one is really come out to the body, the body. You have a look there on the screen, you'll be able to see it, you can book. Go online for book. Try and bring with a friend. I mean, it's pretty about going book share knowledge with a friend. I mean, share is very tracking you trying to keep that as up to date as possible. We're also trying to work as hard as possible to help our clients. So it means we don't get to it all the time. But that is the most up-to-date source right now for all of the stuff that's going on and with all of the events that are coming up. We've got some webinars coming up very soon with Dr. Russ and Constanta. If you guys don't know about that, please send us an email. Send it to yaku@ipsinvest.com or Brendan, BRENDON @ipsinvest.com if you don't know about those webinars. We're going to be sharing some good knowledge over there with Clem Santa and with Dr. Russ. We've got some cool stuff going on there. But the biggest thing about everything is join us at the Investor Club breakfast. That's where all the stuff's going to be going down.
And Clem Santa and I will also be launching our book at the breakfast.
Yeah, Scott has been working till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning here every night, really working hard to get that book done between himself and the editor. And we've been talking about it for a while, and now I know I've actually seen how far it's gotten, and I tell you what, the quality of the content is phenomenal. It's groundbreaking. It's a little bit edgy. Some people aren't going to agree with it too much. It's powerful stuff. So we're going to be launching the book at the Investor Club breakfast. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on at this breakfast.
And one last thing as well, both Andrea and John are going to come to the Wealth Masterclass that the Neil Peterson from Real Estate Investor magazine is putting on. It would be nice if you are coming along. We will see you there as well. We are the primary sponsor through Wealth Migrate and IPS. It's as a sponsor. And again, we want to be able to provide people with the best knowledge so that they can make educated and informed decisions. One other thing, Brendan, I just want to mention, we are doing one last buyer's trip for the end of the year. You can get all the details at the breakfast, but that will be at the end of October. And this is a bonus buyer's trip. If you come along, you get to meet Jack Walsh. Jack Walsh is the ex-CEO of General Electric, probably one of the 10 most recognized businessmen ever in the world, and we're getting to spend a weekend with him. So if you want to come along and come to America and actually see what we do on the ground, meet the partners, and bet everything like a lot of our clients have already done and now good friends after the buyer's trip, and also obviously meet people like Andrea and John, and that will be in at the end of October. But for now, I think the most important thing is come to the breakfast. John and Andrea make an effort. They're coming all the way out here. So if this is something that interests you, whether you're a current client and you want to ramp up your portfolio, whether you're a new client and you want to get started, the best place is get hold of one of the asset managers. As Brendan said, Brendan's already given out his email, or come along to the breakfast and we can get started there. So thank you very much, George, and Brendan, you've done a sterling job tonight.
Thanks very much, Scott. It definitely helps having you here and having Andrea online. Thank you so much for your time, Andrea. I know we hijacked you for 12 hours in a bus. Scott wouldn't let you off at lunchtime because he said, no, there's a few more properties to see. And then now we're going to hold you hostage for about 2 weeks here in South Africa. So it's going to be exciting.
To be honest, Jonathan, your words of wisdom were scintillating. You've left me captivated as to what you might say at the breakfast as well.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the trip. As I said, I was just so impressed by everybody on the bus. I can't wait to meet many, many more people.
Fantastic. Thank you. Have a great day. And we're going to start off, guys. If you have any other questions, please email us through. And thank you for your time tonight. As we put these questions out there, everybody gets the benefit to learn from them. So thank you so much. And have a great evening, everybody.
It was awesome having you all, some of you online tonight, and thanks very much.